it back.
Brandon, we have to sing Sanctuary. Brandon!
Yeah, that is, it's one of the ones that they focus on right now. The
Nervous.
fount of every blessing, to my heart to sing thy great streams of mercy, never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melodious sonnet, sung by flaming tongues above. Praise the mountain fixed upon it, mount of thy redeeming love. Here I raise my Ebenezer, hither by thy help I'm come, and I hope by thy good pleasure safely to arrive at home. Jesus sought me when a stranger, wandering from the fold of God, need to rescue me from danger, interpose his precious blood. Oh, to grace how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. Let thy goodness like a fetter bind my wandering heart to thee. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, Lord, take and seal it for thy courts above.
Above else, I adore your name. Above all else, tune my heart to sing your praise.
Above all else, I adore your name. Above all else, tune my heart to sing your praise. Above all else, I adore your name. Above all else, tune my heart to sing your praise. Above all
The highest praise, the loudest praise to the name above every name.
Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, Lord, take and seal it for thy courts above.
The splendor of the King. Sing with us. Clothed in majesty, let all the earth rejoice. All the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and darkness tries to hide, and trembles at his voice, and trembles at his voice. How great is our God? And sing with me, how great is our God? see how great, how great, how great is our God. And age to age He stands, and time is in His hands, beginning and the end, beginning and the end. The God and three in one. You're more Father, Spirit,
Father,
Son.
Spirit, Son.
Oh, the Lion and the Lamb, the Lion and the Lamb. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? And all sing how great, how great, how great is our God? Sing how great and how great, how great is our God? Won't you sing with me? How great is our God? Oh, sing how great is our God? You're the name above all names. Come on, everyone's voices. You are worthy. You are worthy of our praise. And my heart will sing. And my heart will sing. How great is what? Is our God?
Our God.
Let's do that again. Name above. And you're the name above all names. Oh, you are worthy. You are worthy of our praise. And my heart will sing. And my heart will sing. How great is our God? How great is our God? How great is our God? Sing with me, how great our God is great. Our God is
And all will sing how great.
how great is our God. Is our God. All the voices lifted.
Sing with me how great
Our God is a great God.
is our God.
And my heart will sing.
All will sing how great, how great is our God.
Amen. Can we give God a round of applause?
Mogafin, Nangil e Sábado. Hello, welcome to Vespers and happy Sabbath. Welcome to the students, you made it through this week. Welcome to the families here for Family Weekend. We hope you enjoy visiting with your family this weekend. And a final, very important welcome to all of our returned SMs, my brothers and sisters who have just returned from near and from far. We recognize you here today. This is here to recognize you and to celebrate your commitment to service, so thank you. We invite you all to stand and sing with us for this next song. bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory,
plans are for me. And oh, how he loves us so. Oh, how he loves us, how he loves us so.
Good evening, and I'd like to again thank you for coming to our SM Vespers this year, where we get to hear some great stories from some speakers coming up. I'd like to share with you our verse for this year, and it comes from 1 John 3, verse 18, and it says, "Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth." And I've got a couple people coming up here to speak shortly. One of their names is Curtis, and the other one is Rachel. And they have some great things to say, and I'm excited to hear from them, and I know they have great stories that you'll love to hear too. If you'll bow your heads with me in a word of prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for tonight. Thank you for this Vespers that we're able to celebrate all the students that have served you in the past year, Lord. Please be with the speakers tonight. Fill them with your words and your thoughts, and let they speak come directly from you, Lord. In your name, amen.
Can we with the podium? Okay. All right. Cool. What's good, everybody? Hello, hello, hello. Where I was at, I can't say the name due to legal reasons. I can just say the region, Maghreb. They say salam alaikum as a greeting, meaning peace be upon you. So, well, actually, I'll start with the verse. In Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 4 to 5, it says, "When you make a promise to God, don't delay in following through. For God takes no pleasure in fools. Keep all the promises you make to him. It is better to say nothing than to make a promise and not to keep it." So to be honest, I did not want to be a student missionary. I didn't want to be. And I know that sounds crazy, but let me explain. Because I would hear different stories, like missionary stories, student missionary stories, and they were inspiring, but I was like, that's not for me. Because people, they would say they went for the adventure, they went to see the world, they went to take a break from school, and that's fine. But I was thinking that, okay, while that may be your motivation, you're still doing student missionary work. And so I didn't want the pressure of that title and the responsibility of it, because I've always wanted to travel, always wanted to go overseas, but for my own reasons. And so I thought I could beat the system. It's just, okay, why do student missionary work when God's desires and my desires will clash, when I can just not do student missionary and do ACA? Work smarter, not harder. But I will admit, there was some interest. There was a tug at my heart for student missionary work, but I was like, nah, that's just, the desire to travel. But then God kind of made it clear to me through a sermon that I heard over at Berean. Shout out to Berean. And the speaker was talking about King Saul, and King Saul is very relevant to me because growing up, people would say, oh yeah, you're just like King Saul because he was tall. So basically, I'm like, okay, I know the story. But then when the speaker, she said that Saul was hiding behind the luggage. He wasn't just hiding behind the luggage, he was hiding behind responsibility. He was hiding from his responsibility because God was calling him to be king, and Saul didn't want to do that. And that hit me. I'm like, oh, sorry, God, I didn't know it was like that. You're saying this is a responsibility? I'm hiding from responsibility? So I'm like, okay, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. I didn't know where. I didn't know where he was calling me. So, I was just trying to figure out places. At first, I wanted to go to Brazil because I know some Portuguese and whatnot. But I had to be honest with myself because I didn't really want to go for the position. I wanted to go because I have a lot of homies down there I haven't seen in years. So I realized that I really wouldn't be focused on the mission. I would just be focused on trying to link up, to hang out. So I decided to give that up. And then I landed upon Hong Kong to be a spiritual ambassador The pandemic hit. I had an interview with them over Zoom, but they said that I was too young for them because at the time I was 19. But yeah, and so I was rejected. And so I was talking with the chaplain at the time, and she asked me if I still wanted to go. I said I still want to go, I just don't know where. So I decided to go with Adventist Fraternity Missions. I picked the area in Central Asia to go to, but it had to be pushed back due to funds and because I came late into the process with Adventist Fraternity Missions. So I go through the 2020-2021 school year, my sophomore year. Yeah, I mean, even then, it was still kind of like spooky or scary that I was going to be going overseas. I was going to be away from my friends. So the summer rolls by, and on my birthday, during training in Michigan, they told me that you're not going to Central Asia, you're going to Maghreb. I'm like, oh, okay. So I went from learning Russian for a month to trying to figure out the language of Maghreb because they speak many languages there. But I was still waiting for my funds to come in because while I was reaching out, it was just slow. At the time, I was about $1,000 away from my goal. And Chaplain Andrea, she called me and said, Curtis, do you still want to go? I told her yes, hang up. But it was as if my conscience got beside me and said, Curtis, are you dumb? Are you dumb? Pick up the phone and tell her you don't want to go no more. Because you've been waiting for almost 2 years to do this. God should have picked you up when you wasn't drained, because that past year, sophomore year, was hard. It drained me mentally and emotionally. And I was just like, you know what? I might as well just work until the next school year. But I realized that with Adventist Fraternity Missions, I signed a commitment form saying that no matter what, I will not back out. So I had to keep my word. So as I'm waiting for one of my connecting flights to Maghreb, I'm not all that excited. I'm just like, okay, I'm going overseas, that's cool. But while I was going to fly high, I was feeling low, very, very low. But there were two things that shifted my mindset. Two phrases. The first one is, got to see it through. The second one is plus ultra. So got to see it through, I heard that from this comedy skit where the guy would go through outlandish schemes and people would ask him, yo, are you really going to carry a refrigerator across the desert? And he would say, got to see it through, my boy. So I realized that, okay, I signed up for this. So that means I got to see it through. And the second, plus ultra, I mean, if you watch anime, My Hero Academia, that is one of the phrases the character All Might says. And that's actually Spain's motto, national motto, plus ultra, which means to go further beyond. So I realized that I had to go further beyond what I felt. In order to see it through, I had to go further beyond. So that's what shifted my mindset. So while I was there in Maghreb, I was a homeschool teacher. Me and my student, Malik, we had a good time. While I was his tutor, it was more like a big brother, little brother relationship because we would roast each other. But he would always finish me off with, and that's why you're single. And I'm like, it hurts sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. It's like, bro, I just tripped and you just said, that's why you're single. Come on now. Or I would mess up a word and he would say, that's why you're single. And I'm like, come on, man. I'm trying. So it was a great time. And we even saw Spider-Man No Way Home on the second weekend. That was pretty fun. But as time went on, I was feeling incomplete. Incomplete as in my actions were incomplete because I was fulfilling my duty to Malik, being his teacher, and I had a community with the career missionaries. I was the only student missionary there, but there are other students from across the Maghreb area that were Adventists. So I had a community, but just that I was still, a stranger in a strange land, in the village I was in. So I'm like, God, I know I can't speak the language, so I can't really share Jesus. I know that I can do it through my actions, but how can I do this? And I felt led to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the love chapter. And everybody's familiar with verses 4-7. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It protects, always trusts, always perseveres, always hopes. But the next 3 verses were the ones that spoke to me. It says, prophecy and speaking in unknown languages and special knowledge will become useless, but love will last forever. Now our knowledge is partial and incomplete, and even the gift of prophecy only reveals part of the whole picture. But when the time of perfection, in this sense, mean completion, when the time of perfection comes, these partial things will become useless. There's theological debates on what are tongues in the Bible, and theological debates on prophecy. While these things, they are important, they don't last forever. They have their use, but they don't last forever. And in my case, in terms of communication, I wasn't able to communicate like I was able to back in America. But seeing this, I said to God, all right, God, faith, hope, and love. That's all I got. So I went ahead and got myself involved in wherever I could, from soccer games to the local market on Thursdays. I was betting on faith, hope, and love. But that was really made clear to me when there was one Saturday night where I heard a whole bunch of music and whatnot. And in my mind, I thought it was one of the celebrations leading up to the wedding that they were preparing for. Because the people, they would be honking their horns and singing and celebrating the bride or the groom. So I went over there to the center of the village to see what was going on, and it was actually the wedding. It was a full-on wedding. Everybody was turning up. And so I'm just there observing and whatnot because in that area, with foreigners, they're not, especially dark-skinned foreigners, they're not really particular in terms of like their weddings, allowing outsiders in their weddings. So I was just, quietly just observing. And I look, and I see the groom and his entourage. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm part of the wedding now. And so I'm just watching, dancing along with them. They go into the tent. And yeah, there's so much music playing and whatnot. And I remember the groom's father, he left the tent to go do something, but he grabbed my shoulder and says, malakor, which I'm like, I don't know what you mean, but okay. Like, he said it so passionately. I'm like, all right, his son's getting married. He's happy. So yeah, I was having a good time, even though I was outside the tent along with other people. But then this one guy, he was in and out of the tent, and he was like, oh, come in, in English. And I'm like, well, I'm not really a part of the wedding. I don't know nobody here. And he's like, no, come on. So I step in, and everybody's looking at me, they're smiling and whatnot, laughing. I also just focus on the wedding. And so, yeah, I was like, oh, okay. This is nice. This is nice. And then it was 2 in the morning. I'm like, okay, this wedding's going to 5 a.m., so I need to head out and go to bed. As I'm leaving, the groom's best man or his cousin, he's coming back into the tent while I'm going out, and he passed me on the shoulder. And even though I didn't necessarily know the language that well, I didn't know what everybody was saying, a pat on the shoulder, universally, that's a form of acceptance. And that night, I'm in my apartment, and I'm like, well, Lord, faith, hope, and love. Faith, hope, and love. So, overall, I've learned that God can use your desires and his desires together. Like, God is the God of the universe, but at times it's like, well, God can't really use that. But he's like, oh, word? I'm gonna rock your whole world. Back to the phrase plus ultra. Plus ultra is a Latin phrase and national motto of Spain. A reversal of the original phrase, it is a reversal of the original phrase, non plus ultra, which is said to have been inscribed as a warning on the pillars of Hercules on the Strait of Gibraltar. It has a metaphorical suggestions of taking risks and striving for excellence. Non plus ultra means no more beyond. At the time, they didn't know that the world was round. They just thought you fall and die or something like that. But then plus ultra means beyond. No more beyond and beyond. Commitment and love, the two things I learned, have risks and unforeseen factors. But God's love can take you above and beyond what you think is possible, if you just let him and believe. That's it.
Hello, Walla Walla University family. As Brendan earlier introduced, my name is Rachel Langford. Before I begin tonight, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge past student missionaries. If you served last year, 2 years ago during COVID, 10 or 20 years ago, will you please stand? The people standing before you tonight are just some of the many people who have given their lives to God. So, again, my name is Rachel, and I graduated high school in 2020 during COVID. I began my freshman year here in the midst of all the craziness of online classes, limited number of people at events that could be closer than 6 feet apart. During high school, I got the opportunity to go on multiple mission trips. This included Peru my sophomore year of high school, and I was going to go to Indonesia my senior year in March. Due to COVID, it was canceled. Little did I know that I would spend an entire year serving on a tiny island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Sometime during freshman year, on a random Tuesday at 11 o'clock in the morning, I was paying attention to community, which, as many of you know, online, it's very rare. But for some reason, that particular Tuesday, I sat and I listened to the Student Missions Vespers. I remember hearing all the student missionaries talk about their years, specifically Jeff Fennell. He went to Majuro and talked about the amazing time he had as a teacher and living life on an island. I don't know how and I don't know why, but sometime at that 11 o'clock worship did I decide I wanted to commit my life to be a student missionary. I had finished up all the paperwork, and it was time to make a decision about where I would go. Near the end of the year, I would talk to previous student missionaries like Audrey Turner, Jeff, and Jonathan. Before I knew it, I decided where I would spend my year and what I would be doing. In Mazureau, I got the opportunity to teach 25 amazing, adorable little fifth graders, as well as coaching high school girls basketball and volleyball. In May, ending our freshman year, Leilani Lockwood and I prepared mentally to go serve in Mazureau. She bought me a necklace and a t-shirt that had the quote, "Faith over fear." That was our goal for the year. Something we had to tell ourselves and believe in is that God is so much more bigger than any fear. Big or small, God is always greater. He is there to stand by our sides, to help us face our fears and protect us in our weakest moments. So I'm sure many of you are wondering, what is Mazureau? Anytime I tell anyone where I went, I get the question, where? What? So Mazureau, I like to explain it as being in between Hawaii and the Philippines. If you want to see it on a map, it's kind of crazy how far you have to zoom in. You can see the USA over there, you can see Hawaii, and far, far zoomed into a map is the Marshall Islands. Mazureau is the largest capital of the Marshall Islands, which is made up of a large coral atoll of 64 islands. The island we were on was a big number of 25 miles long. For those of you who don't know where Tri-Cities is, we can cover the entire Mazureau Island halfway going to Tri-Cities. Most places on this island, you can see ocean on both sides. The island is one road with houses and ocean and beautiful, beautiful greenery. On the island, there are two Adventist schools, Laura SDA and Mazureau SDA. Leilani and I taught at the bigger school, Mazureau SDA, which had about 340 students, pre-K to 12. The school was right near the water, which was amazing for sunrises, sunsets, and a nice ocean breeze to cool us down from the insane humidity and protect us from the mosquitoes. So now we knew where we were going to go. We knew what we were going to do. We just had to get there. And this is where all the challenges came. We would be given dates of when we would depart to Mazureau. But each date that approached, we would get an email that said, "Just kidding, you have to wait a little bit longer." And that would happen again and again and again. But on August 29, Leilani and I began our journey. Due to COVID and the island's travel restrictions, we had a long process of quarantine. It began in Hawaii. We had a little over a week, and we got lucky because it started out being 2 weeks. But when we started our process, they dropped it down to a week. In Hawaii, we had a beautiful, beautiful room looking over Oahu. Now, I never thought I would have this problem, but being in Oahu without being able to be in Oahu and enjoy it was extremely difficult. We had a great view of a hotel pool, a small sliver of the ocean, and many, many tourists enjoying their final trip to Hawaii for summer vacation. After being in Hawaii, we would head to Kwajalein, which is a small other island in the atolls of Mazureau in the Marshall Islands. There we would spend 2 weeks. But before we could begin that, planes that get sent to Mazureau in the Marshall Islands are extremely limited. The days that they can get sent out, the times that they can get sent out. So our plane flew over Mazureau, and they said, "We're going to make a quick pit stop." We landed in Mazureau. We got to see the island from above to drop some people off, just to leave and take off to go sit in a room for 2 weeks. That feeling and anticipation of this place where we just landed for 3 to 5 minutes is going to be our home for 10 to 11 months. And we still have to wait 2 weeks before we can enjoy it. Quarantine in Kwajalein was extremely difficult. We were in a room for 2 weeks, not getting to feel the sunlight. The food is the worst food I think I've ever seen in my entire life. There's a window that looked out a beautiful ocean that we couldn't even crack open to get some fresh air. Leilani and I really bonded in those 2 weeks. It was extremely claustrophobic, and while we were finishing up our time in Kwajalein, Walla Walla's 2021 to 2022 school year had begun. While we were sitting in a small room, claustrophobic, just leaving home, leaving our family and friends, and getting that fear of missing out of everything that was happening here at home. Sitting in a small room, you can't do much but think. And that's exactly what I did. I was having thoughts of self-doubt. I was focusing on everything that I had lost instead of focusing on what I would gain within the next 10 to 11 months. I would constantly ask myself the question, am I the best for these kids? Is there someone out there that's better for them? Finally, after a long month of not feeling sunlight, being given horrible food, longing to meet my students, and wanting to get out of that little room we were always stuck in, it was finally time to head to Majuro and begin this experience of a lifetime. When we arrived on the island, it was September 22nd. School had already been going for about a month, and we were getting thrown into review week right before the kids took their first set of finals. Leilani and I had no training, we had no teaching education, we had no teaching experience, and I was expected to lead 25 kids. 25 kids looking at me for, how does the world work, miss? Why is it the way that it is? Why does this happen? Why does that happen? The pressure was intense. During the first month, I felt like I wasn't teaching the kids anything. I felt like they weren't learning anything from what I was doing in class. And sometimes, I felt like they didn't like me. I would ask the question again of, why am I here? What am I doing with my year? And is there someone out there that's better for them? I was having a hard time adjusting to the humidity, cold water, it seems there was no hot water, constant rain, endless amounts of cockroaches and ants, and food going stale within 2 to 3 days, no fresh vegetables or fruit. But as time passed, things got a little easier. This last year in Majuro, there was 8 student missionaries total. 6 of them from Andrews University, and the 2 of us here from Walla Walla. As a student missionary, you're all going through the same experiences. Some of those people that were there with me are my best friends even today. We still talk and joke about the things that happened in Majuro, because the challenges we went through, we didn't go through them alone. We went through them together with those other student missionaries. I was starting to learn how to manage my classroom, how my kids learned best, and how I could connect with each of them individually. But as time progressed, I finally found a way to find a rhythm for my class, the way they found it to work best, the way I found it to work best. And every day when I would begin class for worship, I would like to have 5 to 10 minutes of quiet time. If you're a teacher, if you've ever been a student missionary, you know that classrooms are not that quiet. So it was extremely rare if all of them were quiet. October 28, I assigned the kids a journal topic. The topic was, write about a time someone showed you respect and kindness. Write about what they did and how it made you feel. We were learning about respect and kindness in class, and journal topics were kind of their favorite way to free write and sit and just express their feelings to me. So a month after arriving, one of my boys wrote this in his journal. So there is someone so nice. Her name, Miss Rachel. She is so nice, but we changed her. We were so naughty. Then she looks like a mean person. But she is not. She taught us kindness and respect, and she does this by teaching us. And it makes my heart warm up. Even though we are so mean to her, she still teaches us. And that makes me think she is a brave person. A person that does not give up by hatred and negative energy. She will always teach us, we love you, miss. Keep up the good work. I made this to cheer you up. That right there was my this is it moment. That was my I can do this moment. If a 10 to 12-year-old believes in me, I think I should believe in myself. I received assurance from the student, from him telling me that brave people can do this. I don't think he understands what it is to be a student missionary. I don't think he understands what it means to leave your home for 10 to 11 months, but he knows that it takes a brave person. Oftentimes, the hardest part for missionaries or anyone who wants to follow God's plan for their life is trust. Trusting the crazy call we think we're hearing from God to follow. I know you all know the verse, trust in the Lord with your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. But no matter how many times I read that verse, it doesn't get any easier to go follow a call for my life that seems completely insane. When going throughout our journeys in life, we oftentimes feel that we're walking on the path alone. John the Baptist is talked about in Luke 7, verses 20 through 27. It says, "When the men came to Jesus, they said, 'John the Baptist sent us to you to ask, are you the one who is to come, or should I ask someone else?' At that very time, Jesus cured many who had diseases, sickness, and evil spirits. So he replied to the messenger, 'Go back and report to John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is proclaimed to the poor. Blessed is anyone who does not stumble on account of me.' After John's messengers left, Jesus began to speak to a crowd about John. 'What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed swayed by the wind? If not, what did you go out to see? A man dressed in fine clothes? No, those who wear expensive clothes and indulge in luxury are in palaces. But what did you go out to see? A prophet. Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom is written, I will send my messenger ahead of you who will prepare your way before you.'" The first day Leilani and I landed in Majro. It was a Wednesday, September 22nd. The Majlis Church does a service every Wednesday. It's very similar to a Vespers, just a little shorter. And the first thing I noticed when I walked into the church for the first time was this little banner hanging up in the corner. It said, "I will go, Lord, take the lead." One of the hardest things for me, especially within these last 2 years with everything going on, has been trusting God's plan. Hearing God's calling for my life to go be a student missionary was something that was so hard to trust and follow. Me going to teach 25 students on a tiny island that nobody knows about in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. At the time, it seemed a little crazy. Leaving my home and my family. And I focused so much on what I had lost leading up to that year that I lost sight of everything I was to gain. Being a student missionary is an opportunity many people will not get to experience. So if you feel that calling for your life, God will lead the way every step. This is a year full of the best and worst times. We talked about at our SM retreat that sometimes people think this year is just bad or just good, but really it's all the above. You're going to face challenges emotionally, spiritually, sometimes physically with your health while you're away, but there is going to be so many things you never forget. As a teacher, you gain a group of best friends. Those 25 kids became my best friends. I was with them 5 out of 7 days of the week, and sometimes, especially in the islands, that time that those kids can go to class, it's their favorite part of the day. Getting away from home, getting to see the teacher, getting to see their friends, they loved it. Something about island kids is they can sing. They are extremely musically talented, and they love it so much. So one of my favorite memories from the year that I will forever remember is that sound of the classroom being full of kids. Despite it being extremely loud, that sound of laughter and music and just excitement for learning is something you're never going to forget. The first week I was teaching them, I decided to attempt to teach them a song. It was a song that many of you should know. It's Trust in You by Lauren Daigle. It's a song that I listened to leading up to this year. It's a song that I was taught at some point throughout my life. And these kids picked it up so fast. So every morning for worship, "Miss, can you turn on that speaker and play Lauren Daigle?" So I said, "Yes, we can listen to it." But my favorite part about it was they wanted to know what the song meant. They wanted to know, "Miss, who are we trusting in? Miss, what does it mean to trust in you?" And I explained to them who we're trusting, what we're trusting. And so I would continue to teach them songs every 1 to 2 weeks. And we would sit down as a class and talk about the meaning, and they would apply it to their everyday lives. Despite all the struggles you face throughout your year, there's going to be so many good things that outweigh the bad. While on our SM retreat last weekend, we were handed this piece of paper, and it said, "List all the joys you can remember from your year." Previously, the discussions we had that weekend were about the challenges and the hard parts, and I sat there for like 5 minutes thinking, I don't know what to write. How did I just spend 10 to 11 months doing this amazing thing and nothing is coming to my head when I'm thinking about the negative things? But after a few minutes, all those happy memories filled that page. I reflected on the times with the other student missionaries, drives around the island, playing volleyball, taking walks, watching the sunrise and sunsets, and most importantly, celebrating holidays together. Those student missionaries are your family members. You typically celebrate holidays with your families, but we don't have ours. So we all became each other's and did our best. Many of you know that work and early mornings can be extremely difficult. But walking to class in the morning, you are bombarded with so many students saying, "Miss, Miss," and they give you the biggest hugs and they just greet you with the nicest smiles, despite how tired you are, despite how stressed you are for all the tests you have to make, all the papers you have to grade. Miss, hearing Miss as a teacher is one of the biggest heartwarming things I know a lot of us can relate to. I mentioned earlier the sounds of the classroom, the singing, the laughter, the excitement, but a lot of my boys struggled academically, and I felt super nervous that they weren't going to do well, they weren't going to understand the concepts. And one boy specifically, every time we were learning a new concept and he finally understood it, I would hear him in the back of the class, "Oh, Miss, I get it now." And he would go and he would turn to his classmates and he would teach them that concept that last week or even a few days ago, he didn't know how to do it. Each week in church, at the church on campus, we would rotate through the classes of who would lead Vespers. And the one I remember the most was the freshman class. Again, they are super musical and they love to sing, and they filled the church singing these words: "I have tried so hard to see it, took me so long to believe it, that you'd choose someone like me to carry your victory. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated with the one who has conquered it all." Leading up to that moment, I had never heard that song. We sing it a lot here at Walla Walla, and it's called Champion. And hearing those kids sing those words for the first time is so big. That song now plays such a big role. Those who feel a calling to go serve short-term, long-term in the United States or on a tiny island out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, it can be so hard to see and believe and trust God's plan for your life. But as his children, we are crowned with confidence. He chooses to carry our victories with him. If you are feeling the call in your life to serve, you have the biggest support team here at Walla Walla University, whether that is the student missions team or the chaplain's office or anyone who has previously served as a student missionary. There are so many places who are in constant prayer regarding the need for student missionaries. This last August, Majra was exposed to COVID. Previous islands had already been exposed when student missionaries went out there, but Majra had faced no exposure. They closed down at the beginning, so kids all had to do stuff online, but these island people, they don't have internet. They don't have all the access to phones and computers and laptops. So we've been hearing about how much they're struggling for student missionaries because nobody can get sent out there. And if you go, it is a year that brings so much growth to your life. Spiritually, emotionally, you may lose some going out, but you are going to gain way more than you've lost. And not only are you going to impact the lives you interact with, but even more importantly, you're going to impact the lives of others, and they're going to impact your life. We are assured in the song Shepherd that in the process, in the waiting, you are making melodies over me, and your presence is the promise. For I am a pilgrim on a journey. You will lift my head over the mighty waves. You are able to keep me from stumbling. And in my weakness, you are the strength that comes from within. Good shepherd of my soul, take my hand and lead me on.
I invite you all to please stand with us. You called me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail. And there I find you in the mystery, in oceans deep. My faith will stand. Come on, lift your voices. And I will call upon your name, Jesus, and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you are mine. Oh, you are mine. Your grace abounds in deepest waters. Your sovereign hand will be my guide. Where feet may fail and fear surrounds me, you never failed, and you won't start now. So I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you are mine. Oh, Jesus, and you are mine, and you are mine. Join with me as I sing. Spirit, lead me where my trust. Let me walk wherever you would call me. Take me deeper. Take me be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. And take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith would be made stronger in the presence of. Oh, Spirit, lead rise above the waters. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, ooh, you are mine.
You may be seated. It's my privilege. My name is Andrea Keel, and it's my privilege to get to know student missionaries throughout their journey. So students who have questions about what this is all about, who maybe don't want to go, but they just want to hear for a second, all the way up through these stories coming back. So this is just such a beautiful moment that we can celebrate together these SMs who stepped out on the water and they took a huge leap of faith, and especially in the times that they left. You heard one of the prime examples of what quarantine looked like on the way there. Thankfully, it's better now, but there have been some hard times in the last few years, and yet God has continued to put it on the hearts of students to go. Our theme this year is Go Love. And based on the verse that we read earlier, 1 John 3:18. And I want to extend an invitation for all of you, really, to join that challenge. That's easy enough, right? But it's not at the same time. Loving is hard, but that can start right next to you. That can start with your family, with your friends, with your school here, with our community. And then that can start as God places it on your heart to take you to other places. So first of all, I do want to say a huge thank you and welcome home to this year's SM. So if we can just give them a round of applause. And really, that round of applause is just as much and actually, it is for God who got them through every second of that. It is also for their parents. And so, I mean, there's a lot of parents here tonight. Unfortunately, I can't see you very well from here, but I know that you're here. But if you are a parent of a student missionary who is returning this year to campus, can you just raise your hand? We have a few here. So I think we need to give a round of applause also for these parents. I just want to say thank you so much. You guys and families do so much to make this possible and just to keep that encouragement going. This has been a huge experience for you too, I know. So thank you. And then finally, of course, we're planting some seeds for those of you who might be thinking about next year. And just one that I will say, there's a lot of different places, a lot of different ideas out there, and I know it might sound scary. It can be anywhere from the United States to across the world. One area that I really want to highlight that's been a very strong tradition from not only our school, but many other schools, is the islands in Guam Micronesia Mission, which includes Marshall Islands, where Rachel just shared from. They have been hit really hard with the pandemic in a different way. They closed their islands, which was great for a little while, to try to keep out the pandemic, and that worked for a little while. It's starting to come in, but it's a little better now. But that also meant that it was really tough on their education, really tough on getting for one whole school year, they couldn't get any volunteers in to teach. So it's been hard for them to find teachers since then. And right now, the need is so great that they're actually incentivizing. So starting in January, there's a couple islands, Ebi and Chuuk, that they're actually reimbursing $2,000 worth of airfare for volunteers going. So I'm saying that if you feel an urgent call to go, we can help make that happen, but also just to highlight how desperate they are right now for teachers. So this isn't just a call for one person, this is also a call, like, grab your friends and just go take an island, just like adopt them, and those kids will win your heart over just as much as the stories that you've heard tonight. with that, I just have a couple announcements, and then I will close with prayer. But after this, our evening is not quite over. We do have a little missions fair here in the back. You saw some tables on your way in. Several of our return student missionaries will be there to answer questions or just talk to you a little bit. Then if you go to your left or to your right, you will encounter Apple Fest, which is some fresh pressed apple cider and some apple cookies. And this is all part of Parents Weekend, so that we're really glad, Family Weekend, we're really glad that you're here celebrating that. And finally, BSCF has a special event at the Atlas called Impact, and you're welcome to check that out as well. Plenty of other activities. I could be here for 10 minutes telling you about the weekend, but just check that program that you have, and you can see the various services we have and the various activities this weekend. With that, I will go ahead and let's bow our heads for prayer. Dear Jesus, I just thank you so much for what you have done this year. You've worked in so many lives. You've impacted lives around the world through students from Walla Walla University. And you've brought them back safely, and we don't take any part of that for granted. We just pray that we will honor and glorify your name, whether we're loving right here on our campus or whether we're called across the oceans. But either way, I just pray that we will be brave and that we will be led by your Spirit. Pray a special blessing on the rest of this weekend and the families and the students that are here. Thank you so much. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. Have a good weekend.